All right, today's topic, exponential equations. We've already really dealt with exponential equations in the recursive form. This might be more called explicit. The word explicit simply meaning that we could get right to the answer. In the recursive form, we had to know one term before we could get to the next term, before we could get to the next term. Now, we could jump right to the 99th term. So here is the equation for the explicit exponential equation. This a value, you'll know this as the start value or initial value. This is the start value when x equals 0. So this x here is going to be which term we're on. It's the term that we're on. Remembering starting at 0, so the first term is going to be x a sub 0. Then if we want the second term, it's a sub 1. The third term is a sub 2. So here, this tells us how far we are in the sequence. The b, we've already used this letter b. The b is going to be what we call the multiplier. And then y will be the final value that we're looking for. So here, to look at an example equation, actually let's look at the recursive, let's look at a previous recursive equation that we've had here. You might recall this one right here where we started at 3 and multiplied by 1/2 each time. This is the recursive form where we had to know each term to get to the next term. Here, let's look at the explicit value. To write this equation, any given term y is the start value of 3 times the multiplier, which was 1/2, to the x, where x is our term. So if I wanted to find the first term, I'm going to put 0 in here. The start value, it should be 3. We already know the start value is 3. So if I put 0 in for x, 1/2 to the 0 power. You can put that in your calculator. We'll talk about what 0 exponent here means soon enough. But this should be the number 3. So if I want to find the second term in the sequence, when I make this a 1, equals 1/2 to the power of 1. Well, 1/2 to the power of 1 is going to be 1/2 times 3, should give me 1.5. And you could push that right in your calculator. To get to the next term, so maybe I'll call this y sub 0, this y sub 1. This will be y sub 2. Now, of course, you can start seeing the sequence happening where each time we multiply by 1/2. So the next one better give us 0.75. But here it's 3, 1/2. Now I'm going to put the 2, the power of 2. That's this x variable. So here we're going to find the third term. So if you do this, this is going to give us a 0.75. Punch it in your calculator and you can find that out. But here is the value. Notice here we could have done this in our recursive form by multiplying each one. But now I can go right to the 100th term in this sequence. You know what, let's not go so big. Let's go right to the 10th term in this sequence. Let's go right to the 10th term because I can see this number's dropping off pretty small. So even my 10th term will be small. So my 10th term will be y sub 9 will be my 10th term because I started with a sub 0. So the 10th term is going to be 3 times 1/2 raised to the 9th power. So I started at 3, and then I have to multiply 1/2. I'm going to have to so if I start at the 3, I'm going to have to multiply this 1/2 9 times is what happens to get there. Now in my calculator, I'm definitely going to need this. So I'm going to take 0.5, 1/2, raised to the 9 power. Oops. Raised to the 9 power. I don't know if you can see, but this is going to be that exponential. And then I'll multiply by 3. So I raise that to the 1/2. And here I'm getting, in my calculator, remember this negative 3 up here tells me I have to move it back 1, 2, 3 places. So this should be 0.0058, and I'll round this up to a 6. So I guess that's an approximation. This would be my 10th term in the sequence. 10th term meaning that I'm going to use 9 because I start with a 3 and then I multiply. So this is my term number 1, and then I'm going to multiply 1/2 9 different times. So try pushing that on your calculator and make sure that you can get this value. And that's a brief description of what the exponential equation is. Starting value, and this is key when x is 0, b is the multiplier, whatever we multiply by. In this case, it was multiplying by 1/2 each time. And then here it'll tell us the term, remembering it's always going to be off 1 because we started our 0 term. So if I want 100th term, I'm going to go to the 99 here. If I want the 100th term, I'm going to start at a value and I'm going to multiply 99 times to it to get to the 100th term.